if my audio drops out, and it isn't just me fumbling for my words, saying ums and ers, and there will be gaps of silence as well sometimes as I'm making notes. I got to focus on what I'm writing down. I started recording, so I'll just tell listeners right now, thank you for joining us once again for another episode of Dreamscapes. Today we have our special guest, shaggE, and he's going to tell us about his dream. But first, I was explaining the process, and anyone who's watched the other videos may be familiar with it already. But what I want to go ahead and do is have you tell the dream from beginning to end chronologically, from falling asleep, the first thing you remember, to the last thing you remember before you woke up. And then I'm just going to listen and take notes. And then we'll go back and go through it again. I'll try and pick out or help you identify some more details. And then kind of in a way, a third pass through, or the analysis or interpretation phase between the two of us. We'll try and put together what makes sense about why this dream happened and what it might mean to you. Sound good?
Sounds good.
Okay, good deal. So I'm ready when you are. I'll just listen patiently, quietly, while you begin at the beginning and tell us about your dream. Go ahead anytime.
Yeah, so how the dream started is more like, just kind of like fades in. Like I can just suddenly see myself running along down some destroyed streets and buildings and everything, sort of, if you've seen any images in like World War II or anything like that, destroyed buildings, especially in like Germany and pretty much just anywhere that the war had taken place at, anything that was destroyed and bombardments and everything like that. There are some buildings that were still standing, but most were crumbled or completely gone or destroyed. I don't entirely remember how I had gotten there. I just know that I was with a group of 5 other people, which I had assumed we were in a squad. We had started running up to this church that I had seen, that we had to set up like a forward operating base, they would call it. And we were also looking for something. I don't know if it was a person. I can't say it was a person because it was more like we were trying to search for something, but it wasn't a person. But anyways, it was something important. So me and the 5 other guys, we were going up it was like a long staircase up to this church. And I can just remember as we bust through the front doors of the church, half of us break off. One takes one side of the church, and I take the left side of the church. And as we're going down, we're clearing out the halls and everything, and I distinctly remember that one of the weapons I was equipped with was an MG42, which is one of my more favorite weapons of the World War II era. And we were just clearing out the hallways of enemies and just trying to make it to the main hall of the church, where everybody sits down, prays, and, you have a guy at the altar, speaks and does all that stuff. I'm not really a religious person myself. Kind of as of recently, I've kind of delved more into it, but I'm still kind of on the fence on it. I still believe there's a God that exists, or the possibility of a God that exists, but, hold on one second. Sorry, someone came into my room. So yeah.
That's okay. Go ahead.
So we're clearing out the halls and everything. I look outside one of the broken windows, and I could see that there were more people charging us. So I mount up and clear out those guys, as the guy that had followed me down the left hall finishes clearing out the rest of the hall that we had gone down. We eventually make it to the main hall of the church and clear out that room. And what we were looking for wasn't there. How I knew that was just based off everybody's reaction and my own reaction. Like, I still didn't know what exactly we were looking for, but what we were looking for, we couldn't find. And then soon enough, there's air raid sirens that can be heard off in the distance, and they get louder and louder. I look up, and this church is also pretty badly beaten up, has been, hit by maybe artillery, but it hasn't been completely destroyed. It's still standing fairly decently. I look up, and I can see through, like, flak fire and I'm pretty sure lightning, silhouettes of bombers, and before I knew it, everything went black, and then I woke up. I lifted my head up, and I'm in a golden church hall, sitting in one of the many seats that are there, more like benches. There were my members of the squad, and then a few other people I don't recognize. And then, of course, somebody at the podium. I wouldn't say the person at the podium is God or anything like that, but somebody who was explaining to us the next sequence of events that needed to take place in order for whatever to happen. Two people I remember got called up to that podium, and they seemed pretty ecstatic of what was going on. And after he finishes speaking with them, I had kind of kept my head down for most of the duration just because I don't know. I just didn't really feel like keeping my head up too much. I just kind of wanted to keep down and just be like, okay, well, whatever happens, happens, which is kind of how my motto has been throughout most of my life is whatever happens, happens. So anyways, he starts explaining to the rest of us how some of us are going to be sent back down who have survived the explosion, but some of us are going to be dead. And we'll pretty much come back and just kind of watch over the people who had survived, sort of like guardian angels, but not entirely sure how that works. I just know that eventually we got sent back down. I wake up back on the church grounds. The church was pretty much completely gone. And I could see my squad mates getting back up after the explosion, mostly unharmed. Nobody took any serious injuries. And I, start walking around, and I found my body laying impaled on a piece of rebar. Like, it wasn't all the way down. It was like kind of hanging halfway. Like my body was impaled halfway down the rebar, impaled through my right chest, and dead, pretty much. My squad mates pretty much had seen it. They said their dues, and they were on their way because they had to make haste because they had the memory of speaking with whoever it was and knowing that they had a mission to complete. So at that point, I had just followed them, and as I was following them, keep in mind too, when I had came to, in a sense, it was daytime, the skies were clear mostly, the sun was just rising, and as everybody was moving on, the light just kind of got brighter, and then I had woken up. And that's pretty much most of what I remember. I know, but I typed down everything I had said before. When I speak it, it's harder to speak. I'm shy, obviously, so it's harder for me to speak things, but that's from what I remember.
Excuse me. You didn't hear any of the other videos up to this point, which is fine. We are in broadcasting out of Portland, Oregon, and there are still forest fires going around, so my throat is pretty froggy, so I'll be coughing occasionally throughout this. Tried not to do it while you were talking, but as soon as you were done, oh my goodness, I'm gonna have to get a cough filter button or something where I can hit it and mute myself. We're gonna have a reverse push to talk. So that was great. Yeah, you were mentioning being a little shy, but hey, that was fantastic. Great description of the dream, and I know you posted it to the a description to the Share Your Dreams channel. So I was a little familiar with what you were going to say, but I still took about 2 pages full of notes trying to get each step of the way. So the first thing we do, we just have you tell the dream, and then we go back again to begin at the beginning and start working between the two of us to get an idea of what's going on, maybe pull out some additional details. So you said that the first thing you remember is the dream kind of fades in, and that was a specific term you use. So are you imagining that like a movie would fade in?
Like, pretty much as far back as I can remember where it starts, it's just kind of dark and you can't really make too much out of anything. Sort of like coming out of a dark tunnel.
Okay. So it's almost like the dream was in progress before you had any imagery and you kind of faded into the visuals.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. And the first thing you remember doing was running down the street. That's the first behavior you can kind of remember yourself doing in the dream.
Yeah, I could remember just running the street and remembering that we had a mission to look for a church that, we did eventually find as we were making our way through the ruined city.
Okay. And that's as you're running, you're with a group of other people that you described as being a part of your squad. That was the feeling you had in the dream?
Correct.
You said there were about 5 of them?
Yeah, 4 or 5. I want to say 5. It would make more sense with 5 just with how the numbers were when it came to imagining people in that dream.
Okay. Do you remember anything about how you were dressed in the dream? Clothing?
More like... See, it's funny because there's that one anime that... I can't remember what it's called. It's on the tip of my tongue. But, people always make memes about it, like the Death Squad or whatever. You know, how they have that sort of like power armor and they're walking around those carrying, large MG42 machine guns. I had never known that anime existed or have never seen anything of that, but it was sort of something similar to that.
Okay.
It wasn't...
I think I know the image. I think I've seen them on. I didn't mean to cut you off. I was saying I think I have seen that, the one that people meme. They got the red glowing eyes and it's a very threatening presence.
Yeah, exactly.
And you described it as was it just a kind of bulky suit of strong protective armor, or would you actually describe it as kind of a powered suit, almost mechanical, like you could do superhuman things with it?
I would say it was more of a power suit because I had like this sense of like it didn't take place in the past. It had taken place either more in modern times or in the future after some serious cataclysmic event had happened.
Okay. And then and all of your squad members were dressed similarly. That's one idea of being in a squad, or one reason you thought of being in a squad is that you were all wearing similar gear.
Yeah, they were wearing mostly similar gear. Not everybody was equipped with the same equipment because obviously when you're in a squad you have to have different abilities and everything like that depending on what the mission would be.
Okay. Do you remember at that moment kind of being able to identify the roles of some of the other people, why their gear would have been different?
Not entirely. I just remember that they were there and that we all had a mission that we had to carry out. Okay.
And part of my process as well is I call it rattling doorknobs. Sometimes I'm going to ask for details and you don't have an answer. And that's perfectly fine. I rattle that doorknob, it doesn't come open, we move on to the next one. Sometimes I get details and you remember them and they don't really add up to much. But I never know what's going to be useful going in or coming out of it, so to speak. So I rattle a lot of doorknobs. And hopefully I rattle just enough that we get a few to come open and they take us where we want to go. But anytime you're like, I don't know, I don't remember that, I didn't see that, it's perfectly fine to just say nope. That doesn't hurt my feelings at all if I'm completely wrong trying to chase down something I think might be important. So
all good.
Yeah.
I will say though, along with that feeling I had before when I said like like I had the sense that, you know, pretty much how I had, like how you said before, how it pretty much had a progression beforehand, before we got there. Like I still had the sense that I knew these people pretty well because obviously we were in a squad. So I mean, previously we had obviously interactions. So I had like a sort of connection with them, but at the same time, I don't recognize any of them, at least outside of the dream.
Okay, but you had the sense that these were people that you knew. You weren't suddenly thrown together with a group of strangers.
No, there were people that I had known, but that's about it.
But no one specific, no one you could identify as being a representation of someone from your waking life?
No, I've been pretty bad with recognizing facial features in real life, but even in my dreams, I never recognize these people.
Okay. There's a name for that. I don't know why anosognosia comes to mind. That's probably completely wrong. I'm going to look it up afterwards. After I'm finished with these, I go back and I listen to the whole thing again, first to make sure the audio came through, and but also then to take for myself a fourth set of notes that I then use as a debrief, and I put that up on the channel under the comments section. Things I missed, opportunities, things I forgot to ask, insights I wasn't able to tease out of my own brain because I'm engaged in the process rather than sitting back and looking at it afterwards. So you can look forward to reading that if you care to. I'm just happy you're here sharing with us, and I hope, I assume the audience feels the same. Just to let them know that they can look in the comments below for that debrief afterwards. And it's go ahead.
Sorry. Yeah, I was gonna say I'll definitely check it out.
For sure. And then you can also leave comments back like I'm on the wrong track, or that doesn't mean anything to me, or bingo, wow, I wish we thought of that at the time. Hopefully it just gives an extra bit to us. So going back to the dream itself, you had the sense that you knew the people, so they were not strangers. They were a familiar squad, people perhaps you'd worked with before, or at least people you trusted, you trained with them, you knew they had your back, you knew they were competent and skilled at what they were doing?
Yep.
Sorry about the silence. I'm gonna need to learn shorthand one of these days. I type faster than I write, but it's just I just need to write. So anyway, that is neither here nor there. Just why it gets quiet every once in a while. So one thing we haven't done is described a little bit more about the nature of the street. So you did say it was definitely looked like it had been the site of a battle, an ongoing battle. There was destruction of objects. There were buildings damaged.
Yeah, like the war had moved away from, like the main war had moved away from that. Like there was still a war going on from what I understand, but the area we were at wasn't really supposed to be an area of high traffic.
Got like not an active area of conflict.
Exactly, but I guess somehow they knew that we were there because there were a substantial amount of enemies that we did have to face.
Okay, just focusing for a moment on the visuals of the street. Like if you close your eyes or whatever you have to do to kind of put yourself back on that street right at the beginning, what do you see stretching out in front of you? What do you see to the left, to the right? Can you give a little bit more description of the objects, the buildings, the nature of the damage?
There were, it's really hard to, it's like, I don't know, like I said, it was more like if you had looked at images of World War II, from all that kind of destruction. Buildings similar to that, but at the same time, it wasn't the same area, at least that's the feeling I had gotten. So it wasn't any place set in our reality, at least as far as I'm aware.
Sure, you didn't recognize it from a World War II photograph specifically?
Exactly. It was very dark too at the time. When it all started, it was dark out. There was quite a bit of cloud cover. And when I was coming out of like that tunnel phase, going into it, is when like I was pretty much coming to the end of the street, and we were approaching the church at that point. So I just could recognize that the buildings were destroyed, and then I could see the staircase leading up to the church. It wasn't a fairly large staircase, but it was like I couldn't really describe the size of the staircase. It wasn't overly large. Like, it wasn't something that would seem too out of place, but it was something that you'd probably see for a church of that stature.
Sure. Yeah, and not to pull you, sorry, not to pull you back just a second to the street and the surroundings, but to let you know why I asked is that the fact that there was an impression of what you saw around you, but there's not a lot of crisp details of the street. It means probably that is not a significant element of the dream. It was just establishing the setting. So by me asking, what did you see? And you're like, I don't know, it was just a thing. And I'm like, okay, we can move on from there. So no worries about being unable to describe it. It just means that probably wasn't very important, other than, as I said, establishing that the setting. And you did give me a lot of details. I mean, I'm already filled a whole nother page with just kind of before you even got to the foot of the stairs, and that was actually really immediately. You arrived there almost still at the very beginning of the dream, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so you get your squad, and you. What was your placement in the squad? Do you know, were you like at the tip of the spear? Were you one of the guys off to the side but towards the back? How would you describe the kind of layout, the composition of the group physically at the foot of the stairs?
Well, we were all kind of in a rush. There was no real setting for how we were supposed to be placed, but I remember that I was like second to the front, like there was a guy in front of me, like off to my right a little bit, and then I just know that the three people behind me, and then the other guy was off to my right.
Okay. Do you remember anything about the guy that was kind of leading the charge? Did he stand out in any way?
Not really. We were, as far as I know, we were just focused on the mission.
Sure. Okay. And you were describing the stairs themselves. If you were to give it like kind of physical dimensions, were they 10 feet wide, 20 feet wide? Did they go up a long distance? How would you describe the stairs physically?
I would say probably 2 bus lengths wide. I would say maybe 20 feet, 30 feet up.
Okay. So this was not. Now I asked that for a reason, to get a visual image, and so the listeners can follow along, but also to get an idea of the scale of the church. This was not a tiny little neighborhood church for a congregation of 20 or 30 people. This was a massive church in the middle of a city, and it was big. Two bus lengths wide stairs, about 30 feet up, before you're even getting to the front door.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Do you remember anything about the construction of the building? Like, what would you say it was made of? You know, cement, marble, gargoyles. Do you have any visuals of that?
I would probably say cement, but it was dark out, so I couldn't really make it out too much.
Okay, so you're still in the dark at this point. It's still before daylight, before dawn.
Yeah, like you could really just make out the silhouettes and pretty much anything that's close to you.
Okay, that would be one reason why maybe the imagery of the street itself, you got a sense of what it was, but you're not no bright visuals. It wasn't lit up in the dream. It was still dark, so you knew where you were, you knew where you were going, but but you didn't really see it very clearly. That's fair enough. So you all rush up the stairs. You're on. What am I trying to say? It was a you moved quickly with purpose.
Yep, exactly.
And then you were describing kind of how the group split.
Yeah, once we went through the front door, 3 of us took the right hallway, and then me and the other guy, I guess he was the one that was on my right at the time when we were charging up the stairs. Me and him took the left left hallway and was clearing that out.
Okay, so can you see in your mind how you entered the church? Did you all go through the main front door?
Yeah,
And was it?
we got up there, the first guy had pushed open the door. I don't remember there being anybody there at first. So we all get in the church, and then it was pretty much just like, okay, 3 of us go right, 2 of us go left, kind of, and then we just kind of quickly moved.
Do you remember the guy that was leading the group giving signals or direction?
There was no real orders. It was kind of like we had almost done this before.
Okay. And when you, so the door was intact and it got pulled open. Was it a set of double doors or a single door?
Yeah.
It was double.
Yeah. It wasn't overly large though. It was, I would say probably about 15 feet high foot door.
Okay. And it seemed like it came open easily, and then you entered. So you enter. Do you have a visual of what you saw walking through that doorway, like the first look at the room?
Not really, no. It was all still kind of blurry.
Okay. So you're focused down on the mission more than the sightseeing, so to speak.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
Pretty much where we could get to and what was the fastest route to get to the to our objective.
Okay. So you split up and you went left. And what do you remember seeing as you're clearing, as you're sweeping? Like, what's kind of play that out a little chronologically?
All right. So from what I can remember, once we got in and I split left, the other guy stayed behind me as I'm clearing down the room. Since I'm carrying a big ass machine gun, I'm going to be the one clearing the hallway. I think I took out probably about 3 people the first time, and then we started moving down. And then the way the center hall was set up was there were windows that were blown out, and I could see across to the other hall, and I could see them clearing out that hallway, and I could see that there were some people scattered about within the center hall that we had also focused on and taken out. When it seemed like we had cleared out both halls and the people in the center, I remember, I think somebody had called out that we had more people charging our position, and that's when I had looked outside and I could see like a whole bunch of people rushing us through the destroyed buildings, and nobody was really focused on shooting us first. They were also focused on just getting to us rather than just outright, getting a position and then holding us down. They also had some sort of goal to get to the church as well.
Okay. So you got the sense from this group that they weren't there just to kill you, but you were in the way. Maybe they were after the same thing? That's what you imagined?
Yeah, they were definitely after the same thing, but they were also definitely there to stop us.
And then also to prevent your squad from completing your mission or getting to the object first.
Yeah. And at that point, when I had saw them, I posted up in the window, and I think there were some people who made it into the back of the church, and my guy had ran down the hall, cleared them out while I was keeping everybody outside from getting any closer to us.
So you posted up in a window to keep them back, and your teammate watched your back.
Exactly. And then the other squad was also keeping the other side clear from anybody entering. From what I can remember, I think it was getting to a point where we were going, like, we had stopped, like, the initial first rush, I guess you could say, of people that were charging us. We quickly made our way to the main hall of the church, because we knew that we couldn't stay there for long because it was behind enemy lines, so not a good thing.
Okay. When you consider the size of the enemy force that was coming at you, so there were just 5 of you, how many were they? 10, 50, 1,000?
I couldn't say, maybe close to 100, maybe a couple hundred, but they were very easy to clear out because they just, for whatever reason, weren't too focused on taking us out at first, just mainly focused at getting in the church to capture it, I guess.
Okay. Do you remember, sorry, were those folks dressed kind of similarly, futuristic, heavy armor, or were they more unarmored but with weapons?
Yeah, they were dressed less, I don't know, there was like some people, I guess, dressed in more normal clothing, and then other people who had some military type of gear.
So there were some people that were, say, civilian volunteers in a way, and the other people were military and they were kind of in charge?
Yeah, I would say, yeah.
Okay. So it was relatively easy to defeat that first wave, but there was a second wave coming? And that's why you retreated to the more to the center of the church?
Well, it was that we were still focused on trying to find what we were looking for, so we had to make it quick. We had to get in and get out. So once we got into the main church hall, we couldn't find what we were looking for, and then that's where the air raid sirens had came up, and I think that maybe the enemy had known that they weren't going to be able to stop us from what we were doing, and they were just going to outright bomb it.
So if they couldn't have it, they were at least going to keep you from getting it.
Yeah.
Decided to bomb. So there you were you had the sense that whatever you were looking for, the next place to look would be up near the altar and the lectern?
Yeah, we had, once we had all gotten in there, we all quickly scattered and were trying to find what we were looking for, but we quickly found out that what we were looking for wasn't there. We were all feeling pretty defeated at that point.
Okay, so you weren't moving towards that goal, and that goal was at the front of the church. It was more, you'd already looked, and now knowing that you couldn't find it, you decided to take up a better defensive position at another place inside, or try and make your way out?
Well, at that point, we weren't too sure what to do at that point because we just knew our goal was to get there, get the item that or person that we were looking for, and get out. But when we realized what we were looking for wasn't there, to us that meant that we were still going to have to continue searching for it. but pretty much the moment we had found out that that item wasn't there, at least in my sense, feeling defeated, I could also see everybody else kind of visually upset at the fact that what we were looking for wasn't there. And then that was shortly after, shortly after that is when those air raid sirens came up, and I looked up in the sky through a hole that was blasted through the roof of the church that had previously, I think, was probably from artillery or some sort of destruction, something that had blown up there. And that's when I could see flak and lightning and the silhouettes of the bombers, and then next thing I know, we got bombed.
Okay. I think there's something significant in, or at least I want to be clear on the idea of finding, coming to the understanding or having the realization that what you were looking for wasn't there. Or this is why I want to ask again, or a different way, and kind of sequentially. So you had gone through the building, you split up, two to the left, one to the right, you led the left-hand group, and you had been searching during that time. And did you discover or realize that the thing wasn't present where you were looking before or after that first wave of enemies approached?
Okay, so the first thing we had to do was make sure the church was cleared before we continued searching. We knew that what we were looking for was in the main hall of the church, but we had to get there first, and we also had to make sure nobody else was going to, take us out behind our backs when we were trying to look for it.
Okay. So you cleared, maybe I'm describing it wrong too. So you would say the first group of people that you engaged were already in there also looking, and that would be the first group that you defeated. And then you continued looking, and then at that point you noticed more enemies were coming?
Correct. Once we had cleared out the hall, and then we cleared out the main hall, because there were windows peering into the main hall, so we could take out those guys that were in there. Yeah. And then after it was cleared, then yeah.
Okay, so did you complete your sweep of that main area before the first wave of enemies from outside approached?
Yes, we completed the first sweep. We were still in the hallways at the time when we had taken out the people in the main hall and the people in the halls that we were occupying and trying to clear. And then before we were able to make it into the main hall is when we were attacked again from the outside, and that's when we had to clear them out before we finished what we were doing.
Okay. Okay, so you had just completed the sweep of the hallways, and that was clearing the building in preparation to then move into the middle, which is where you believed the thing would be. But before you actually got to check that internal area in person, a wave of enemies came from the outside? Is what I think I'm hearing. Okay, and then you had to defeat them, and once those were defeated, then you were able to finally check that main hallway.
Yep.
Okay, gotcha. That's why I wanted to get that sequence down. I wasn't seeing it in my head. Now I see it much clearer. So how maybe describe just a little bit how you went about verifying that what you were looking for wasn't there. Were there any? Did you look in any specific places? Were you squatting on the floor looking under pews? Were you checking behind the lectern at the front? Were you breaking open boxes? How did you actually search?
Well, everything in that room was kind of demolished already, I'm assuming, from whatever had came through the roof. The benches were kind of already blown up and kind of just scattered wood laid about. The altar was sort of intact, but when we got there, there wasn't really too much we'd have to look through to find what we were looking for, because I guess what we were looking for would have stood out pretty substantially enough for us to find it right then and there.
Okay. So it was pretty easy for you to just look and say, damn, it's not here. And you said the people around you, your other squad members, were visually upset? Like, could you see an expression on their face, or did they do gestures that communicated their frustration?
I know somebody had said something along the lines of what we were, like, we couldn't find it, or couldn't find them. Again, I don't remember if it was a person or an object. I still want to say it was an object. But yeah, like, everybody was just visually mad. Like, they could, like, they were just kind of moving their bodies around in a way that you could tell that they were mad at the fact that what we were looking for and what we were fighting for wasn't there.
Okay. Do you remember which squad member spoke? Was it the guy that opened the church door?
You talking about the front door?
Yeah.
The front door, I think, was opened by both me and the guy that was in front of me.
Okay. But do you remember who spoke and who they were speaking to when they said we couldn't find it? Was he like on comms trying to communicate back to base or something?
I want to say it was probably the squad leader. At least that's how I would feel about that.
Okay. And it may not be significant. And you had the feeling he was communicating to someone who was not present?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. And then you said at that moment, you kind of looked up. Is there anything that drew your attention? Like, did the flak and the oh no, it was that you said it was the air raid siren. I'm sorry. That's when you heard the air raid siren?
Yeah, I heard the air raid siren and pretty much immediately knew what was about to happen. And then I looked up and could see through the hole in the ceiling, and I could see through, like, the flak, and like I said, I think it was lightning because it was pretty cloudy out at the night. And I could just remember seeing the silhouettes of planes going over. It wasn't a lot of planes. I think it was probably like a formation of 4.
Okay. So it was pretty much immediately after you were able to verify whatever you were looking for was not there. You heard the person on the comms to base saying we couldn't find it, and then air raid siren?
Yep.
Okay. All right. So can you? So I'm sorry. You already described it. You heard the air raid sirens, and you know what that means. That drew your attention up to the sky. You saw bombardments of flak, possibly lightning. It was still cloudy and still dark. This was still before the dawn.
Yeah, it was still dark out. Like, there was enough light coming from the, like, I would think the moon. I couldn't see the moon, but it would be like if it was a clear night out and the moon was like maybe half present, like you could still make out things around you, you just couldn't make out the details.
Okay. Good to know. Yeah. Sometimes I'm getting better at this process myself too. This whole time I didn't ask you if it was still dark out, and I'm glad that we were able to establish that, because it may or may not be important, but it's good for the people listening and good for the chronology of the dream too. Because you mentioned later on that there was light, that dawn finally came. So I think we're gonna get to that. Sorry, a little bit of water here. Okay, and as you were looking up, did the squad members look up with you, or were they doing anything different?
I don't think so. because they were still trying to figure out what we needed to do next after we found out the thing we were looking for wasn't there. But I just looked up and I didn't see them at that time. I was just fixated through the hole and what was about to happen, because I knew what was about to happen. I was like, we're going to get bombed.
And what did you see a bomb coming down? Do you remember that? Or just as you're looking up, suddenly explosion? Describe that a little bit.
I want to say I saw a bomb, but like at the same time, with how fast everything moves, I couldn't say I did see a bomb, but at the same time, I just knew that, there was going to be a bomb.
Okay. And then kind of maybe, so you said the squad was still focused on the mission, so they were largely unaware. They didn't see what you saw coming.
No, I'm pretty sure they would have known too, based off the air raid sirens, that there were planes coming. But when I had looked up, I had saw the planes. I believe I had just kind of closed my eyes and kind of accepted the fate, and then that's when I had woke up in that golden church hall.
Okay, so you don't have a strong sensation of being blown up, a detonation. You didn't see fire or an explosion. You just closed your eyes and then woke up?
Yeah, I didn't see anything of that. I just kind of closed my eyes and accepted my fate of what was about to happen, and then that's when I had woken up in the church.
Okay, so no actual sensation or experience of being blown up?
Nope.
Okay. And then you said then you woke up in another church, or the same church?
It was a different church.
And you knew that because it wasn't destroyed?
Yeah, it was, for whatever reason I could tell it was positioned differently. The church hall was substantially bigger than the one that we were inside of, and there was a lot of gold all around, pretty much. So like on the walls.
So the physical shape of the building was different? I'm sorry, did you hear me?
Yeah, I said it was different.
Oh, okay, yeah. And there was a lot of gold?
On the walls, golden accents on like the benches that we were on.
So you said there were benches. You woke up sitting on benches?
Yep. I kind of woke up with my head kind of already facing the ground, and then I kind of looked up, and then that's when I saw everything in the church, and like I could see the people that were in there, and then I could, like I said, I saw the gold and everything.
Yeah. So when you say you saw the people that were there, your squad was there, all of them?
Yeah.
Were there other people?
Yeah, there were people I didn't recognize.
How many would you say? How many other people?
I would probably say about 8-10 people total. So like 5 other people I didn't recognize in that hall.
Okay. So 5 were your squad, and then 5 not, approximately.
Yeah.
Do you remember anything about how you were dressed at the time? Were you still in your suit of armor?
I don't remember seeing anything, but I felt like I was still within, the armor that I was wearing, minus the helmet.
Do you remember anything about how the other people were dressed?
Fairly the same, except for 2 people who were wearing more like tourniquets.
Interesting. So just to back it up a little bit, you said dressed the same. You mean the other 5 people were also wearing power armor?
Yeah, the people, or not the other 5. The 5 people that were in my squad were, but the other people.
Okay. So yeah, just to focus on your squad for a minute, you were starting to describe it, and I wanted to make sure I had it correct. So some of the other people in your squad were wearing also bandages of some kind, tourniquet. You said so. There was whatever damage they had sustained during the fighting carried with them.
I'm sorry, tourniquet isn't a good word. What was the?
Just like their arms wrapped in a bandage to keep the blood in, that kind of thing, to stop the bleeding.
No, not tourniquet. The 2 people I had seen, they were like I don't know how you call it, not really a dress, but something like I don't know, some sort of cloth that you would wear. It was only covering the lower half of their body.
Okay, but focusing on your squad members with you, you said they were still in their armor as well, as far as you knew.
Yeah.
And were any of them injured visibly?
From what I could see, the benches kind of covered everything. I was sitting more towards the back in the middle, where I could see everybody, but I didn't see anybody behind me. I never looked behind me.
Oh, that's one thing I didn't ask about, kind of the physical layout of this. So is it kind of a typical church presentation where the center aisle is clear and there's a row of benches up both sides to the left and right?
There were 3 big rows of benches with 2 aisles leading up to the altar.
Okay. And where was your group in that? Like, if you look at it from the top down and then do it as kind of like a tic-tac-toe grid, there's like the center, there's the top left, there's the middle right. How would you describe your placement in there?
I was sitting closer to the left middle because there were fairly large benches. I was sitting closer to like the left middle of the bench, near the rear. I think there would probably be a couple more benches behind me. 3 benches in front of me, I would see 2 of my squad mates. They would be sitting more in the middle. There was 1 squad mate sitting in the left row, furthest to the right. I'm trying to think. I think there was another one further up in the middle. And then the other people I had noticed were sitting in the other rows on the farthest right, with the 2 people in the cloth gowns sitting closest to the front on the right.
Okay. Did you get you didn't get the sense or see the imagery that your squad was all on the same bench? You guys were spread out a little bit?
Correct.
A few feet apart, kind of here and there. Spread out. Okay, and you so then you looked over to the right and you saw these other folks that were not members of your squad, and the 2 of them in the front were kind of topless, but wearing a skirt type of cloth thing, almost like just how would you describe it again? Sorry, cloth gowns. You said.
Sort of like how there seems like on like the left, almost like if you were to wear a towel, but it wasn't a towel.
Okay. So it was definitely a piece of clothing?
Yeah.
Okay. Fair enough. But they were naked from the waist up, basically. Top.
Correct.
Okay. Were those people doing anything? Just were they sitting side by side on the bench? Were they standing at the front?
sitting side by side.
Sitting side by side. Do you remember anything visually about the people? What they looked like, other than their clothing?
They were a lot more well built than the rest of the people in the altar or in the church hall. I would say that.
Okay. Did you get a sense of how tall they were? Regular human size or anything out of the ordinary?
Probably, I want to say they were probably about 8 feet tall. They were more like the dude bro kind of guys.
Okay, so they were big and they were muscled. And did you notice them doing anything other than just kind of chilling, just sitting quietly?
Yeah, they were sitting quietly along with everybody else who was just kind of listening to whatever the guy at the altar had to say. I never really caught everything he said. I just know that he was saying a lot.
Okay. And that is that. Just right before we get to that guy, you got a sense there were some other people there. Do you remember anything about them? Just little details. That you said they were sitting also on the right hand side, but behind, maybe a few rows back from the big dude bros.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you remember anything about them visually? What they were wearing, what they were doing?
They were just wearing normal clothes.
Okay. And also just sitting quietly, paying attention.
Correct. Well, actually, no. They were keeping their heads down.
Okay. Did you get a sense of why they had their heads down? Were they like praying? Were they ashamed? Were they falling asleep because they were bored?
I couldn't really explain it. Like, I felt like I was really the only. I think everybody else had their heads down except for the two dude bros and myself, who I would occasionally lift my head up just to glance around to kind of get what was going on.
Okay. So everyone else kind of had their head down, and you didn't get a sense of why they had their heads down?
Not really. I would assume just because it would be, more like out of respect, kind of like during prayer.
Okay. So that's kind of when you got that visuals, all that time just to get kind of the visual scan of the room. And that's when you became aware that there was a man at the front, kind of standing at the lectern, the podium type of thing, and he was speaking?
Yeah.
And he had been speaking as you scanned the room. He was already in, like you woke up to him being in the process of saying something?
Yeah.
Can you kind of describe what that person looked like? Just whatever comes to mind, whatever you saw. Yeah.
The only thing I could remember is that he was wearing some sort of robe clothing. I can't make any facial features out.
Okay. How would you describe the robes?
I guess you would say something sort of like Jesus, but again, I wouldn't say that would be like God or Jesus or anything like that, because I've never been too religious, but if I had to, he would probably be more closer to a Jesus figure, but I couldn't make any facial features out.
Sure. And in terms of the robe, are you saying it was a more plain? It was a very simple robe, versus say like the Pope with all of his layers and the hat and the staff,
Oh yeah, definitely.
So it was a very simple robe, maybe of a rough spun material, or did it look kind of fancy?
Wasn't rough spun. It looked smooth, but it wasn't fancy. Like it just like something anybody could easily acquire.
Okay, so nothing not like a burlap sack, but also not highly adorned like someone. What am I trying to say? I guess like the Pope. There's a certain pomp and circumstance that goes with the Pope. He puts on the outfit, he wears the hat, the robes of office, the ceremonial garment. This man seemed to be wearing something more functional.
Yeah.
Okay. And you were aware that he had been talking the whole time, like even since before you kind of woke up to being in that environment, he had already previously been speaking to the whole group.
Correct.
Okay. And what was your sense of what he was talking about? You don't have to try and remember exact words or anything, but what was the subject matter that person was covering? Say, prior to when you arrived, was it the same? He just went on with it, or did it change because you were there?
It was more as though we had all just kind of appeared there all at the same time, and he had started speaking, explaining what had happened, at least for everybody else, like the other group, what had happened to them, but I didn't ever catch anything he was saying about that group.
So you figured, or it felt like whatever he was saying was relevant to you and your experience, giving an explanation.
Correct.
And how would you characterize the nature of that explanation? What was he telling you about your experience?
God, I don't know. More along the lines of just how we did have a mission that we were trying to complete, at least towards our group, what I can remember. That not everything we are doing is completely in vain, and how everything is going to happen the way it needs to happen. Even if things change, it will still move forward as need be. And that even if we were meant to, die, that we would still complete with whatever we needed to complete.
Okay. So this person was aware of your mission. Like, you didn't go in there and tell him, "Hey, my name's Bob and I'm from this squad and we were looking for this thing." Like, he already knew.
Yeah, he already knew what was going on.
Okay. And and he also seemed aware that you had died, or that an explosion had happened immediately prior to coming to the Golden Church?
He knew why everybody was there. Anybody that was there had pretty much died.
Okay, that's another detail I forgot to ask. I'm glad you volunteered that literally everyone there was there because they had died.
Correct.
Good addition. And he was explaining, as far as you could tell, that what you had done up to that point was in vain. It's kind of how you phrased it, but I want to get the idea behind that. Did you think he was speaking about the search for the object, or something else? How would you describe that?
Sorry, I guess it didn't come out clear enough. No, wasn't in vain. Like,
was not. Okay.
No, was not. So, like, what we were doing, we were meant to do from the very beginning, but he had pretty much explained at some point how things can change, but even if they change, it will not change the end outcome of what has to come.
Okay. So, yeah, you described, okay, I'm glad I clarified that too. That's why I do this, and I hope the process isn't annoying for some people. Like, I ask the same question a bunch of different ways, and I go for clarification because sometimes I just didn't hear you, and that could change everything. Who knows? We're going to get there.
Oh, you're good, man. You're good.
All right. Thank you. So he was explaining to you that he knew you were dead. He was aware of the mission, and it was not all in vain, and that everything was moving forward, say, as it needed to be, and that even having died was not the end. That something, what am I trying to say? That the change, you were talking about change. Can you say that again?
Like, I guess pretty much what we were looking for, something had changed with what we were looking for was supposed to be there. But for whatever reason, it wasn't. So something at some point had changed, and whatever was there was not there anymore. But regardless of that, he made it clear to us that it wasn't going to be in vain, and that we still needed to be there regardless.
Okay. And when needed to be there, in a sense, in what sense was there a need for you to be there? Can you try and describe that a little more?
Not really. It kind of didn't make too much sense, just the fact that he had told us that it was part of a bigger plan for everything that's gonna come together, and that we are pretty much doing everything we are supposed to, and that even though we had died, it doesn't mean the end of us. We are still going to continue with what we need to, and we will accomplish that however he sees fit, or I don't know as far as that.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question too. Did you get a sense that this person was a source of information or a director of events? How would you describe it along those lines?
A little bit of information, but more of a director.
Okay, so a kind of like a director, but coordinating events, but then also speaking to you about the events to give you that information and context.
Correct.
Okay, so kind of like a leader explaining the plan.
Sort of. It's just that, of course, whatever we were trying to accomplish hadn't been accomplished yet, so he couldn't really tell us what was going to happen because things still can change. But even if they change, to keep pushing forward.
Okay, so you got the sense that this person was not omnipotent, not omniscient, didn't necessarily know everything or the outcome, and couldn't necessarily guarantee an outcome. But is that making sense so far?
Yeah, it is.
Okay. So it wasn't, and this is relevant, I would say, to your impression of this person, that it was not a god. It literally was not God. This person was human, as far as you could tell, or something else?
Well, definitely something else.
Okay.
They did have some sort of power over us, like, explaining like a director, pretty much like he could control things within his circle of influence, basically.
Okay. So definitely superhuman powers you didn't have, or we don't have in our waking life, but limited. Not all powerful, but more powerful than most.
Yeah, like somebody had definitely pretty much entrusted him with the power he has.
Oh yeah, that's the other sense. You got an idea that this power was granted to that person from somewhere else?
Yeah.
Okay.
Also, I don't know if I should mention too, before we get too far, the reason I was able to make those, the two dude bros out was because at some point he had called them up specifically, and it seemed like the people in their group had, I don't know, it kind of gave off like this sense that there was a lot of pride in it. Like there was a lot of pride in their group. And he was kind of congratulating them for what they had done and explaining to them specifically, because he had called them up to his podium and talked to them directly about what was going to happen. In a sense, for some reason in my mind, it kind of felt like there was something unfair about it, but at the same time, it wasn't that big of a deal to me.
Okay, that's exactly where we were going next. Is once I got a better sense of the guy, what he was doing, what your sense of him was, then what's the next thing that happened? And that's when, so he was doing the explaining to you and your group, and when he was done explaining to your group, he turned to them, or he only turned to speak to your group after dealing with the dude bros first?
He actually talked to their group first.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, because when I woke up, I had stayed quiet for the most part. I didn't really make out the first part of what he was saying. And then when he called them two up, I could make out maybe just a little bit of what he was saying, enough to know that I felt like it was kind of unfair, the treatment they were getting, but at the same time, it was sort of like I understood why. And then when he was done explaining to them what they were going to be doing and their group, is when he told us what was going to happen with us.
Okay, good. It's good to get that sequence of events. So part of your coming into awareness of this surroundings and the circumstances you were in was observing that interaction before the man at the podium turned his attention to you and then explained things to you?
Yeah.
Okay, so just a little bit of the chronology of that. The man at the podium, or lectern on the dais, he summoned them up to the front. And how did they approach? Did they walk slowly, very ceremonially? Did they take a knee? Did they high five each other? What was their behavior as they approached the podium?
They seemed fairly ecstatic for being called up there. Like it was something of great importance. Like I said, it kind of felt unfair to me because I guess it was some sort of like important thing or some grandiose thing to have been called up there.
Almost like that doesn't happen very often. It's kind of a special thing to be called up.
Yeah, and at first I guess you could say they kind of celebrated a little bit at first, and then when they got up to the podium, they, stood there, respected him, and listened to what he had to say.
Do you remember how they celebrated? Yeah, was it like a high five, or they were just like, yes?
Yeah, kind of like a high five. They kind of just like, looked at each other and were like, hell yeah, dude. Like, and they went up there and stood silent, listened to him, and then they went back down and sat back down.
Okay. So what, did you have an impression, you said you didn't catch it all, fair enough, but did anything come through of what the man at the podium told the Dude Bros about what they were doing, about how they had succeeded, or what made them, what did he tell them? I shouldn't put words in your mouth. Did you have a sense of that?
I think it was just more of a fact that they had, I don't know, it was just having such an important role to play, that they were ecstatic to be in such a grand role. But I don't know what they would have done. I never knew any of them prior to the events of being in the church.
So the idea was that they were summoned to be given an important role, and that was an honor to be chosen?
Yeah.
Okay. So they were celebrating the fact that they were summoned to be given an important assignment. And did you get any idea of what that assignment was going to be? Did you hear any of the details or get an impression of it?
No, not at all. I didn't catch any of it.
Okay. Yeah, and just what you've told me is plenty in terms of describing the experience. There's a lot of detail for not even really understanding exactly what was happening beyond the bare bones of it, that they were, kind of honored by special selection for a mission. They were told what it was going to be and then told to go ahead and return to their seats. They were given given instructions.
Yeah.
And then he turned his attention to you, and that's when he started explaining that he already knew what had happened to you.
Yeah, it wasn't directly towards me. It was just towards our group. We weren't, I guess you could say, entirely special. As I said, I kind of felt almost more jealous or unfair treatment, I guess, compared to them. But at the same time, I understood because it was, I guess they had some sort of holy mission kind of deal going on.
Okay, so there was in some ways. Again, I don't want to put words in your mouth. Did you feel kind of in a way, an envy or a jealousy of like, what am I, chopped liver? Why weren't we selected or given that special honor?
Sort of. It was just kind of like, I don't know how to describe. It was more like, I kind of wish I was called up to the podium because it was more the fact that I just kind of wanted to figure out what exactly was going on. I wanted to get more information of what was happening, but I guess I just didn't deserve that, kind of.
Okay.
And so while, he turned to us, I still made sure that I was going to keep my respect and just kind of keep quiet, kind of keep my head down, occasionally look up, kind of get what was going on. And that's pretty much when he started explaining to us how, he was aware of what happened, about how, he's pretty much like, okay, so you guys, had died from the explosion of the bomb. Some of you guys will be going back down completely unharmed for the most part. And he also meant it towards the other group too, like the other group of people, because they had also died as well. That some of them will come back alive, but some of them will come back more as like a guardian angel, like they have, died and they aren't going to be brought back. And that's what he was telling us. After that, we were sent back down, and that's when I had, kind of woken up again, sort of on the ground. I got up and looked around, and I could see my other squad mates kind of unconscious, starting to wake up, and I could, just tell that I saw my dead body, and I was like, okay, so I'm dead. I'm a ghost now, kind of.
Okay, so he had explained. Just to go back over it real quick for my brain. He explained he knew about the explosion. He's like, here's what's going to happen. You're going to go back. Some of you are going to be okay. Some of you are going to be like guardian angels. Did he use those exact words to your knowledge, or more gave the impression that would be your role?
Yeah, he didn't use the term guardian angels. He just said you are going to go back and watch over them, basically.
Okay. Did you get a sense of what purpose that would serve, to watch over?
Thinking about it, it would probably be more like I'd be surveying what's going on, and if something important needed to be intervened with, that he could then use us as sort of like a channel to change things in a way to better fit what needed to happen.
Okay. Writing as fast as I can here. Sorry.
No, you're good, man. You're good. Take your time.
Thank you. Sorry to the audience too. If you're listening here, just put yourself in the scene. Close your eyes and imagine.
I gotta apologize too. My stuttering and sometimes not best explanation of things.
No, it's honestly, it's fantastic, and that's why I asked for details. Like, if I need to know something a little bit more, like I don't quite get it. Mostly, it's me. I'm not inside your head. I'm trying to get in. As much as you're able to open that door, and hopefully, honestly, between the two of us, we get that door open and we're able to go through it together. I'm just trying to make sure I get this concept right, because sometimes things strike me as meaningful. Like I have this very visceral sense of when something is meaningful, like a light bulb goes on in my head, and the idea that even being dead would serve, you could still serve a useful purpose. You could be an observer and in a way communicate back to that powerful being, and that you could also serve as a conduit to affect some kind of change in some way. Can you describe that a little bit more? Like how you felt that would happen or could be implemented?
Sort of like how I believed he had like some power given to him. He would then give one of us a little bit of power to kind of influence the immediate thing that was happening. Not too much, but just enough to hopefully change it for a better outcome.
Okay. All right, so that is then the moment that you woke up, or rather, taking us to that moment when you, well, maybe right before that, did you get any sense of the person at the podium being finished talking to you? He said his spiel, and did he snap his fingers? How did it transition from he's explaining things to you woke up?
I just kind of like, sort of like how when I kind of accepted my fate before being blown up, I kind of just lowered my head, closed my eyes, and then kind of woke back up.
Okay. And then what was that experience like, awakening back in the bombed out church? I know you described it being the visible evidence that a bomb had gone off in there. It was significantly more destroyed than prior to going to the Golden Church.
Yeah, it was pretty much completely leveled.
Okay. And that's when you saw, did you see yourself first, or did you see your teammates? Where did you put your attention first?
I checked to see where everybody was, just to make sure if they were okay or not. And then it was kind of like sinking in about, because at first it wasn't really realizing what had happened. It was still trying to take in all the information because it all happened kind of fast. Just the sequence of events happened so fast. I'm still trying to take it all in, still kind of fully understand what all happened. And I'm like kind of looking around, and like I could look at myself and I could tell that it wasn't like I wasn't really who I once was. Like I obviously am not alive. I could look at myself and I guess I could see through myself, but not really. I don't know how to really describe it. It was like an out of body experience, I guess you could say. And there was someone else with me. It was like no, they weren't dead. Never mind. That wasn't there. Sorry, I got something mixed up. Calling. Give me just a second. I'm trying to remember.
That's okay. Yeah, you were describing kind of the initial process of reawakening back in the completely leveled church. Your first instinct was check on your friends. Did you, having been told what was going to happen, the way the man at the podium kind of described it was some of you will be coming back dead, but he didn't say specifically, shaggE, you will be coming back dead. So you didn't know that initially?
No, I didn't. I didn't really know until I kind of had like the feeling as I was kind of accepting my fate kind of deal.
Okay. You kind of had the feeling even before reawakening back in the leveled church that same feeling of accepting your fate as in before you died, and then that's when you bowed your head and reawakened, and that feeling kind of lingered with you of kind of knowing what you were in for?
Yeah, because it's kind of like if you had been knocked out and you just kind of wake up, you're trying to process everything that just happened. So it kind of like all had to come back to me in a way. And then when I had realized, I was like, okay, so yeah, I was not somebody who came back to life.
Okay. And that's when you saw yourself?
Yeah, I saw them all getting up, and I was kind of wandering around. I was like, okay, so I kind of was trying to look for myself. I was like, okay, so I kind of want to see where I landed. I wanted to see what happened. And it was like I had been blown up through the air. Some rebar was exposed, and my body just kind of fell down onto it. And yeah.
So you found yourself on the ground, on top of a pile of rubble, impaled on rebar?
No, it wasn't on the ground. Like, my body was kind of laying halfway on the rebar. Like, my body was impaled, but didn't go all the way down.
Okay, so the rubble out of which the rebar was sticking was on the ground?
Yeah.
But it was more of a dramatic display like you would have seen in a movie, perhaps, of someone whose body is propped up by being impaled?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay. Do you remember anything about it, or anything else about it in terms of specific imagery of your? I don't know what I'm trying to ask, but maybe just a little more description of the physical position of your body, and what other people were doing around you at the time.
Well, I'm just kind of looking at my body. I'm just like, oh, holy shit! Like, didn't think I would have died that way. It's just laying there, or not laying there, but, kind of hanging
up, yeah.
while impaled. It was through, like, the right side of my chest, and, of course, arms hanging, you're dead. Limp, with my body, like, the front face of my body facing upward and my back facing down.
Okay, so it had impaled you from the back and was poking out through your chest?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then I glanced back at my teammates who were getting up, and they also were still trying to process what kind of happened. And as it was kind of coming to them, they were like, okay, so we have something we need to do. We have to keep moving forward. We can't spend too much time here. But they stopped, paid their dues to my body. Unfortunately, they felt bad that they couldn't do anything, like bury me or anything like that because they had to hurry. But they knew I was there still and, continued on. And then as they were starting to walk away, some of their armor and everything was kind of blown off. But for the most part, everybody was okay. Like, nobody had any serious injuries. And as I, just kind of followed behind, oh yeah, my bad. I also forgot to mention, as I had came to, it was like the sun was rising at this point. It was, I would say, probably like just a little past sunrise. There's still a lot of smoke in the air from all the destruction. And as everybody is walking along, trying to move on to wherever we need to next, everything just kind of gets brighter and brighter, and then that's where the dream ends.
So you saw the squad, recognized that you had died. Did they have any sense of you being present at all as a watcher? Like, did they know you were there, or were they? What was their sense of you at the time? You were dead and gone, or your body was dead but you were still there?
Like, they knew that I was dead, but they also had like the sense of knowing that I'm still there in a way. Because they still they still remembered mostly everything from being in that church hall, but they don't exactly remember being there exactly. It was just kind of more like a blur, sort of.
Okay.
But they knew that they had some mission that they still had to accomplish as well.
So it seems like you had a better recollection of what you had experienced than they did. Theirs was a bit foggy, and that maybe almost as if they didn't return, or the idea that they returned alive meant they weren't able to retain as much of the information as you did, having returned as a ghost or a watcher.
Correct.
Okay. Okay, and then they paid their respects, and they're like, "Sucks, but we got to move on. We got shit to do." He wouldn't want us to sit around crying. He would want us to move on. Ain't got time to bury him. Can't take him with us. We got to go.
Yeah, they knew for a fact that if I was there, I definitely wouldn't take it to heart.
Gotcha. And then you followed them a little bit. How did they leave the blown out church? Were they did they head back down the stairs that you guys came in originally?
No, since everything was kind of just flattened or just completely blown up, it was just, you could kind of see more of the terrain or the rubble laying on the terrain. And I want to say where we were heading, sort of, so the back of the church, I want to say, was facing not really east, but more northeast. And north. Hold on, let me get a position up.
Yeah, take your time.
Okay, so yeah, the back of the church would face more northeast, and they started walking more southeast.
Okay, so it was almost as if they were leaving by the same direction they had entered. Like, even though the stairs weren't there anymore, they left out the same front door and down the same steps that they originally walked in?
No, the church would be facing, like the rear of the church would be facing east. So they would be leaving southeast. So like the corner, like the right corner of the church, I guess you could say, from where we entered.
Okay.
But it was completely wiped out. Like, it was like there was no walls.
Yeah.
It was just mostly rubble.
Okay, so they actually left from a direction that was across the room from where they entered, technically.
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. I'm not sure that's relevant, but I like that detail of like, because who knows? That might be important. I mean, maybe it was one thing that they left the way they came in. Maybe it means something else that they left a different direction. Okay, and then you were giving kind of compass directions because the sun had come up. Where was the sun relative to the direction everyone was traveling?
Slightly to their left from where they were traveling. So like southeast, like I had said.
Okay.
It's like, but yeah, southeast would be pretty much where they were going.
So it was kind of rising on the left-hand side. And then did you get a sense that the brightness that just got brighter and brighter until it washed out came from the sun or came from somewhere else?
I think it just everything just kind of got brighter. Like, as if, you were to turn the brightness up on like a game or something like that, it would just brighten up. And then if you were to brighten it so much, it would just be a white screen basically. And then I woke up.
Okay. Washed out brightness to woke up. Gotcha. All right, that is the second pass through. And at this point, we can. Well, I think I need to pee. It's just the way it is. So I need just a couple of minute break, maybe. But did you want to leave the recording going? Take 5, get a cup of water, do whatever you got to do, and then come back and keep going, or do you want to cut the recording, take a longer break? I don't know how much time you've got left in terms of what am I trying to say? Like, we could do a part 2 another time. I'm comfortable, whatever you, however you want to play this.
Oh, well, I'll take like a 5-minute break and we can continue if you like.
Okay, yeah, let's both do that, and then I can just take it out and post, that kind of thing. So yes, I'm definitely going to go do that. I'm going to step outside and make myself relieved, and I'll see you back here in about 5.
Alrighty.
All right, good deal. Let's do it. Break.
Sure.
I'm back.
Yo, welcome back.
Are you there?
Yep, I'm here.
Okay, wonderful. Sorry, that was a bit longer than 5 minutes. My wife texted me, and I had a friend who said he wanted to write some intro music for me. So, yeah. Hey, maybe by the time I cut and paste this thing back together to take out the break, because no one wants to listen to dead air, there will be intro music. Maybe. We'll see. I might just throw it up anyway. Hey, he made it. I got nothing, so I'll take it. Yeah. So, you did everything you needed to do. You feel ready to proceed?
Yep, got myself some water. I'm all good.
Sweet. Yeah, that's something I need to do. More water. Just smoke in the air and then talking constantly. I get a little froggy. So we went through your description and just listened. Fantastic. We went through a hell of a lot of details. To my mind, the details make all the difference. They make the important elements of the dream what actually happened. What did you see? So I get real specific on stuff. As I said, sometimes I rattle doorknobs. They don't come open. I could ask a bunch of questions that had nothing to do with nothing. And that's just fine. But it was all part of the necessary process. What I'd like to do now is just ask the person I'm talking to, having gone through it like that, having had a second person, a questioner, ask for those details and focus your mind on those visuals and bring them back into your conscious awareness. Do you now have an impression or a sense of what the dream might be about, what it might have been trying to tell you, what meaning there might be in it? Do you have something about it, so that I'm not just putting my thoughts in your head when you've already got your own ideas?
Well, I did kind of only just realize it after finishing, how it kind of started off in like a very dark tone. How, like I said, it kind of felt like I came out of this dark tunnel, and then everything just kind of, I could see everything. But then it ended on just kind of being blinded by light. Sort of like how, I guess, if I was to wake up one day and it's just everything is just absolute shit, but I guess throughout the day things can happen. Maybe the interactions I have with people might change how things turn out. But that's probably as much as I could get from it. It's always been a weird dream that I've had. It was a dream I had when I was back in high school. So about maybe 5 years ago, I want to say I had that dream. Yeah, it's an older dream, but
It stuck
I
with you.
I could never. I mean, I've got a lot. I've got a lot of memories, a lot of dreams that have stuck with me for a long time. I don't know why. I can remember things even as far back as when I was 2.
Wow, really good memory.
Yeah, ironically enough, considering I had fallen off my brother's bunk bed on 2 separate occasions and had hit my head on a tile floor, I still retained decent enough memory, I guess. But yeah,
Head trauma doesn't always result in memory loss. It can have other effects. Did you, just out of curiosity, did you have an experience that your memory got better after a bump on the head, or after 2 bumps on the head, or or had it always been good and it just didn't break that?
I would, maybe after the second fall, probably I would think, because it's still I can't really put the sequence of events back then all together in a row. I couldn't tell you exactly when such event happened. I just know it happened within that general time frame.
Okay. Do you have a pretty good visual memory in terms of, like, could you close your eyes and remember specific paragraphs from books you've read?
No, like I could remember,
Like a photographic memory, they would call it?
Yeah.
You've always had kind of a photographic memory?
Yeah.
Okay.
I've never been good at really recognizing faces for whatever reason, but I could always remember, like, sceneries and events, pretty much.
That's interesting. I might do my own research, if I remember, about if there's a relationship between, say, what's called face blindness and photographic memory, whether there's a connection there. Just my own curiosity, kind of a tangent, but that would be interesting. If almost as if, what do they call it? There's kind of like every superhero has a weakness in a way. Like if you're going to have certain, almost like there's a limited bandwidth, and if you have an enhanced ability in one area, it'll be you'll lose some other ability because you can only use so much of that bandwidth. What am I trying to say? Like,
I get what you're saying.
Yeah,
like,
almost makes me think of Daredevil, where he lost his vision, but then he was able to kind of see the world sonically, like a bat. Yeah, there is something to that psychologically, or in terms of, say the what used to be called the idiot savant phenomenon. Someone who's just unbelievably amazing at one specific thing, and it leaves them with a lot of deficits in other areas of social interaction or other stuff like that. Again, on a tangent, this isn't specifically about your dream, but that's one thing I love about this type of exploration. It brings all of these ideas to mind. What does this mean? How does it work? And that's pretty much how science happens. People say, I wonder what that is, and then they go try and figure it out. So I love that process.
Yeah, it's kind of like I've always tried to focus, especially when it comes to dreams and certain memories. It's just like, because I think probably the earliest dream I can remember was I was probably, I know this is separate. We'll get back to the other thing, but
Sure.
Like the earliest dream I remember having was when I was probably about 3 years old, and I was playing with one of my favorite toy cars. I was in the living room with my mom, and I think she was reading a book. And for some reason, if my toy car had went into the sunlight that beamed through a window, you would see the beam of light through the window, and you would see the shadow around that beam of light. Anytime my car would go over that light, I could no longer pick it up. It would make me kind of irritated. I'm like, why can't I touch my toy car? This is dumb. It's in the light. I can't touch it. And then I would have to ask my mom for help to move the toy out of the light, and she was so confused. It's like, why can't you, touch it? I'm like, I don't know. I just can't. I don't know how to explain it to her. I'm like 3. Goo gaga, bro, I can't touch the car, bro.
This strong imagery from being almost pre-verbal. I mean, I know toddlers start to try to express simple needs with words that they can pick up at about 2 and 3 years old, but explaining concepts like, mother, the car is in the beam of light, of course I can't pick it up. It's trying to explain that is impossible. But sorry. But it is interesting that you even had a dream in which light a beam of light had a strong focus. And then going back just to your initial comments that you started off the dream in the dark and it ended on this blinding light. So light and darkness, or the presence of light, or the effect of light, seems to be a theme running through your dreams, going all the way back to when you were 3 years old. I don't know what to make of that. I don't know how significant it is, but it is interesting. And you did mention something I was going to focus on as well, the idea that it starts in the dark and ends in the light. So picking up on that was fantastic. But sorry, I didn't want to stop you from reflecting on any other realizations. Was that the only one, or did you have some other sense now, having gone back through it, some other meaningful elements that seem to relate or that resonate with you?
There wasn't really anything else that had made a whole lot of sense to me. Like the whole dream, and just in its nature, was confusing to me even still to this day. And I have always tried to search for like maybe an answer for that dream. Like it's one of the dreams I specifically picked out just because just the way the events happened is something that's so weird. And I've had a lot of dreams where the events are strange, but that one in particular is what I remember the most. Yeah, and it's fairly typical that the dreams with the most intense experiences stay with us. Certainly dreams that seem unimportant, we're going to forget about them. And sometimes dreams are just indigestion and random background noise. They aren't always significant. They aren't always a dream like this, which this one does seem like it's definitely trying to tell you something. Like there's definitely something. The general theory is it's something you're processing in the background, something in your unconscious that is, especially if it sticks with you, it's something that is still an ongoing concern. That's more so with recurring dreams, like the same dream multiple times in a year, in a week, that kind of thing. That one tells you something is very immediately necessary to address. But this one is the idea that a dream would stick with you for years and you could remember so many details of it, tends to suggest some important understanding or realization, or it's something that you should understand or realize if you haven't yet, that kind of a thing. So just a little bit about your life at the time. Were there any concurrent events that were significant? Did you experience anything about 5 years ago that what you would consider significant? No, I wouldn't really say there were. I mean, my life for the most part has been fairly crappy. But I mean, that's for anybody could say that. And I always kind of hate saying that, my life has been complete shit, because at the same time, I know everybody else, either has it worse or can have it better. I don't know. It's just, I hate kind of explaining my own life and the fact that it's just, I know people have shitty lives. I don't want to just put my own experiences out there for the simple fact that, yeah, I know everybody's life shit, but everything I've ever explained about my own life has been majoritarily shit.
Gotcha. And that's something I think a lot of people struggle with, the idea that, what am I trying to say? That everybody has problems. And there are some people who feel their problems are much more important than other people's, and they love to talk about it, and they want to make themselves the center of attention. And then there's also folks that are a little more stoic about it. They're like, hey, everybody's got problems. What are you going to do? I got problems, you got problems. That is a very much a different way of looking at it. And I think in a lot of ways a much healthier way of looking at it, depending on how you go about it. Like if you've got really big problems and you're keeping it all to yourself, then it's not getting better. Maybe you can't handle it on your own, but it's definitely the flip side of that is making a big deal out of nothing and making it sound like your hangnail is worse than someone's amputated finger, Does that make sense?
Yeah, pretty much. Just like, for me, it's like, I don't want to make a big issue out of something that's probably nothing, even if it seems big to me.
And that's the funny thing, because not funny, but like a very important angle on it is everything that happens to you is literally important to you. So trying to express that relative to other people's experiences, where we get into making judgment calls on that kind of stuff, trying to figure out, in a sense, how much do I care about these things personally? How much do I care about sharing them? How much do I care about getting care to seek seek help or sympathy from others? And that's all very personal as well. Like I tend to be a person who likes to handle my shit on my own. I don't want to bother anyone. I don't feel good about bothering people. I don't feel good about being dependent. I don't want to ask anyone for a favor. I don't want to owe anyone a favor if I can avoid it. I don't want to make my problem someone else's. So it sounds like you're a little similar in that regard.
Yeah, pretty much. Like,
okay.
I got my problems, they got their problems, and I'll try my best to help somebody with their problems, but I'm certainly not the best at it. I'll try to do what I can, and at the same time, I get the feeling like, knowing that I'm not the best at solving people's problems, it's just like I don't want to push that on anybody else, because I just know the feeling of how uncomfortable it is not knowing how to help that person.
Okay.
I would still, try to do everything I can to help somebody, but, I wouldn't want somebody to put too much energy into trying to help me with problems that I could probably easily fix on my own, and I'm just being a Debbie Downer kind of person, I guess.
Okay.
But yeah, pretty much how you explained it is, yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, gotcha. Well, it's always good to hear, for me to give you an idea, or to give anybody an idea of what I'm trying to say and have them put it in their own words. And that's kind of what I do when we're giving each other feedback. Basically, this is why I can't do dream analysis in writing. Like I've gone on Reddit and a bunch of other places where people, at Facebook especially, people give 3 or 4 sentences and they're like, "What does it mean?" I'm like, and then people give answers, and I'm like, number one, that's not enough details. Number two, how do you know those answers are even in the ballpark? Because you can't ask the person the right questions in a kind of dialogue. That's my process. This is what I need, and I think that's the only way to do it. Right? My opinion. Maybe other people have a different approach, but I love that. And so, you've had a rough life, and but you kind of downplay the significance of these personal struggles, mostly stoic, kind of leaning towards the self-sufficient side, and definitely don't want to push your problems onto other people, like make them responsible to fix things you probably could, but also not wanting to ask too much that puts someone in a position of saying, I can't or won't, and that's awkward. Does that sound right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay, no, that personally resonates with me. That's exactly like we are of one mind on that. So getting back to the dream itself, we talked about it fading in from the dark, and it was already kind of in process, and you're heading down the street, and you have this sense of being on a mission. This suggests to me that you are, and consistent with what you've just said, you're someone who takes responsibility seriously. You didn't describe being there reluctantly. You weren't dragged into it. That you were gung ho. You were doing something you considered important, and you were doing it with other people. You weren't alone. Correct.
It was something that I had known was extremely important, and it was do or die. It was going to have to get done one way or another. There was no way you could put this kind of thing off.
This something you had the sense this was something you were willing to give your life for, that important?
Yeah.
And it also strikes me that not only are you on a mission, and not only is the mission important, and not only are you dedicated, committed to fulfilling the mission, but you've, in your dream imagery, chosen to surround yourself with a supportive crew. You've got help. You've got it's not all on you. But that isn't what I'm leaning towards. I'm leaning more towards the idea that because this mission was so important, not only do you have power armor, you've been given enhanced ability to follow through, to succeed, but you've got a team with you. So you're coming from it of the perspective of like, this is, what am I trying to say? Because this is so important, you're going to do it right. You're going to get the team together. You're going to get the tools necessary to get the job done. Does that strike a chord?
Yeah, it was. I mean, like I said, it was more effective because it was already in a war, and we had this equipment. We were already specialized for the equipment that we had, and so they were sending us out for this specific task.
Yeah, gotcha. But in terms of the dream imagery, like I said, you weren't reluctant, you weren't alone, you weren't naked. I think these elements have some kind of, well, I think all these elements have some significance to the dream, and that's what I'm leaning towards. And maybe that's why I ask people if it resonates, because and maybe I'm completely wrong. Maybe you're telling me I'm on the wrong track there in terms of did you get more of a sense that it was just par for the course, that of course you'd be in armor, of course you'd be in a squad, that wasn't really a significant factor?
Yeah, that was too much of a significant factor. The significant factor was just really the importance of what we had to do. Okay.
Fair enough. Maybe think about that a little bit. And I could be rattling the wrong doorknob. But that is what struck me. So it's standing out that you very well could have been alone and naked, literally. You could have been insufficiently supplied to carry out the mission, and that would have given it a much different feel. But as it is, you were part of a team and well equipped, ready to rock, taking it seriously, well trained even, and it also seems significant to me that you were not technically the leader. There was one guy, he was only slightly ahead of you, just a little bit right ahead of you, and as in, like, he wasn't far ahead. You were on his heels, but he was definitely leading.
Yeah, we as part of a squad, the thing called cohesion, you want to stick together real close. Like, I'm no military person, I'm not, military experienced, but sure. It's just based off the dream and some of the things I've known through, like, just, reading books or watching videos, things that people have explained in their experiences, just things I've learned. But yeah, like the cohesion, you have to keep people tightly together. But yeah, the guy ahead was definitely leading.
And that struck me as significant as well, because in a sense, you were not the leader, so it wasn't all on you. This was not your squad. Technically, you were a member of the team. You were going to give it 100%, but you had a guide. You had someone calling the shots. You had the squad leader right in front of you, taking you where you needed to go. So there was this additional layer of, what am I trying to say? I guess I said it as best I could when saying it wasn't all on you. It wasn't like you're leading the charge. You're right behind the guy leading the charge. You're no slacker, but you had a commander taking you where you needed to go. You had a guide to a destination. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I get exactly what you're saying. Like, pretty much like I would be the fallback guy. Like, if it's sort of like the backbone, because I had the most armor. I had, the big ass fucking gun. But if I needed to, I could easily throw out commands if need be.
Did you get a sense you were kind of second in command in a way? You were the big boss, but you were his right-hand man?
Pretty much. Like, if anything were to happen, I would end up taking over and getting us the fuck out if I needed to. Okay, good deal. I mean, that's a very important position, too. That, honestly, I mean, not to make everything about me, but I feel the same way. Like, and this is a funny way to say it, I make a good number 2. I don't want to be Picard. I'm cool being Riker. Picard can take all the responsibility, but I got some things to say, and he should probably listen to me once in a while. And if he's not there, I can step up. But I don't want it all on my shoulders. I don't want the final decision every time necessarily. Does that resonate with you at all? That idea? Yeah, pretty much. Like, I can definitely hold my own if I need to. Like I would, I don't want all the responsibility on me because it would be too much pressure for me if I'm doing everything all the time. But if something were to happen and I need to step up to the plate, I can truly do it.
Oh yeah. Sorry for the dead air again.
You're all good.
Yeah. So this is how we go. We just kind of start picking out the pieces that feel right. And I'm trying to go back and read my chicken scratch as well, glossing over a lot of things. So you'd been an ongoing war, destroyed area. I think there is something to the specific imagery as well. The idea that you weren't just on a mission in the woods. This was a bombed out city, an area that was not active conflict any longer, but it had been pretty well beaten up by previous fighting, and that you were heading, through an urban setting, say to a building, and this building was a church. I'm not. What am I trying to say? You'd mentioned in the past that you're not a specifically religious person. Would you describe yourself as kind of agnostic? You don't know?
Pretty much. Like if I were to die and there would be a God, I wouldn't be surprised. Probably the thing that would surprise me the most is the type of God that it would be.
So the idea that there's possibly some kind of spiritual force above us, something more powerful than we are, but you don't know exactly what it is, and you're not an adherent to any religion in real life that describes a specific type of God and what it might want from you.
Correct. Like there are some that I would completely disagree on, but at the same time, I'm the type of person that will still always leave just a little bit of room or skepticism for any kind of possibility that may be, just because, at the end of the day, we're only human. We don't know everything. We're still, we just can learn. That's all we can do.
Yeah, for sure. No, you're, to turn a phrase, you're preaching to the choir here. That's exactly where I'm at on a lot of these things. So I'm trying real hard not to put too much of myself into assumptions about your circumstance. So that would be one reason I would ask, what is when you think of a church, what is it? What associations do you have with that place, that building? And before you answer, I'm leaning towards the idea that why would the person or the object or the thing of importance that you're looking for be specifically inside a church? Wasn't in a factory, wasn't in a residential home. I think there's some connection between your concept of a church as a building or as a place relates to the idea of finding something of value in that place. What do you think about that?
I think I'm not entirely too sure. I think it just could be because of the fact that, while I don't firmly believe in any religion, I do always look through history, and history is sort of one of my favorite subjects. And just kind of reading what people have described in the past, and how a lot of things have always involved religion for the most part in the past, about when it came to wars and what people believed in and such things. But I guess that's really the only connection I could make, is that maybe it's just knowing through history how most wars have been fought due to differences in ideology.
Okay. That's a pretty strong association too, to say, have an understanding of and that's absolutely true. The history of the world is humankind fighting each other over differences of opinion and territory and resources, but specifically ideology, specifically, it's hard. I don't know if it's always quite accurate to say religious wars, because there were a few where it was like this was commanded by a central church authority, and it was declared to be a divine command that soldiers should march out and do commit war in the name of the church. But in some sense,
I'm using religion, I guess, too broadly. But yeah, more along the lines of like ideology, what people believe in, and just like, the mindset of certain people. And, it's usually the mindset of people that bring them together. And it's these conflicting ideas and ideologies and everything like that usually can bring about, what's the word? Destabilization, I guess you could say. Something where, they'll eventually butt heads at some point.
Yeah, for sure. And the idea that, say, your concept of religion being a point of contention, a cause of conflict historically, being absolutely true. The idea that, say, having a church then be bombed out, a victim itself of war, as much as it is a cause of war. That's an interesting visual association as well. It's like maybe if you hadn't started shit, you wouldn't have gotten bombed. Did you get the sense that the war was of some ideological nature, or did you have any sense of the war at all? Why it was going on?
Initially going in, probably there was some sort of religious intent behind it, but I had still carried that same sentiment that I do now, where it's just like I'm not entirely too sure, but the people I am fighting with and what I am fighting for aligns a lot more with my own personal beliefs, so I'm going to fight for that to protect the people that I care about the most.
Okay. So you had kind of a personal investment in the outcome of the war from an ideological perspective?
Yeah.
Okay. And you guys had the feeling that the object or whatever you were looking for was going to influence the course of the war towards your success?
Yeah. Apparently it was supposed, just based off of what I could feel, it was supposed to be something very substantial.
Almost like the course of the entire war would turn on whether or not you guys could acquire this thing?
Pretty much.
Okay. I mean, that's a holy grail right there. That's a very important object. That is a mission worth giving it 100% and worth dying for, if need be, accepting that you might die in the course of it. Very, very personally meaningful motivation. Sorry, making more notes here. So I spent a lot of time trying to focus down on the specific actions, and maybe I never know. I never know when I'm going to come across something important, but I don't know that the exact method you guys used to clear the church was all that relevant. I had that feeling as I was asking that maybe I was dwelling too, and I do that all the time. I dwell on things that are, I think might be important, or I'm not sure, so I don't want to leave any stone unturned. I try to do a real detailed play-by-play, because that's in my mind. That's and to my process, that's the only way I can kind of get at some of these other things that actually do stand out. So I don't think I have a whole lot to say about clearing the church itself, other than the idea that you guys were a well-functioning team, that even without verbalizing commands, you each knew what you had to do. You knew how to look out for each other. It was a very well-functioning team. I think we'd already gotten that idea from some other from some other discussion. I don't know if it's significant that you guys split up. Just from a tactical standpoint, I can make sense of that in terms of of course, that would probably be the best way to get it done. You go this way, we go that way, and we'll meet back in the middle once we've swept the area. Again, suggesting, just a very well coordinated and highly trained, very competent team.
You all right?
No, I definitely just every now and again I get that little piece of phlegm in the back of the throat and it starts making me feel even more froggy, and I get that vocal fry.
Yeah, I hate that. Oof. Sucks.
Yeah, no, I'm okay though. Thank you. I just every now and again I gotta clear my throat. Yeah, just reading back over my notes. I don't know that there's a lot of significance to the, what am I trying to say? The order of events that sometimes dreams, they give you some filler. They give you context for the situation. I don't know that it's actually significant that you cleared and then more people approached and you fought them, but before a second wave on top of that came, you all rushed into the middle to try and find the thing. That might just be kind of drama of the dream that gives you it's playing out your fascination with that kind of military operation. This is what it would look like. This is how we would do it. There might be something there. Maybe on reflection you'll tease something out. Maybe listening to it again, something will come to me. But I think that might be some of that filler stuff, which is perfectly fine. Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, a lot of dreams I've had, especially as of recently, usually involves, anything involving like tactics, because I mean I've always liked military simulators. I've always been interested in. Hold on. Sorry, I don't know if you can hear the background noise or not. I hope that's not coming through. But yeah, like I've just always been fascinated with like technologies and stuff like that. So I'm guessing that's probably why that had played a certain role within the dream, just because that's usually something that fascinates me a lot.
Yeah, fair enough. And also the idea that you guys were behind enemy lines and that you defeated a force of maybe 100, 200 additional people. You guys were getting it done for just 5 guys. You were tearing it up. You were giving it your all, and you were doing it well. You described it as being very easy to defeat those people, as if they didn't pose a significant threat, or at least not anything you couldn't handle. That to me speaks to a sense of self-confidence, of personal competence. Does that resonate with you?
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah. We had our set goal in mind, and we were just going to plan on finishing it.
Yeah, and in real life, that's kind of how it's your self-concept. You're generally someone self-confident. If you feel you are competent to handle problems and get things done, does that describe you in general?
Ironically enough, no. I've never been that much of a competent person, at least in real life. I mean, when it comes down to it, I will end up doing my best regardless of what the outcome is. If, like I said before, if it comes down to me, I will end up doing everything I can within my own power to do what I need to do to finish a certain task, if it need be.
Okay. Yeah, and sometimes dreams are, they've been described as wish fulfillment. Like, I cannot actually fly, but I would love to fly. And so in my dreams in the past, I have flown. And there's some people who theorize flying in dreams is an expression of self-confidence, but sometimes it's just wish fulfillment. I just want to fly. Therefore, I have an experience of being able to rise up like Superman and take off through the clouds. So it can be either way, and it depends on the other context and whatnot. So it is interesting to me that, say, you would have such an overwhelming representation of overwhelming ability to conquer these obstacles, including waves of enemies and highly efficiently clearing rooms and power armor and all this stuff. but it maybe relates to your sense of self-doubt that despite all of that, despite your best effort, you get where you're going, and what you're looking for is not there. You failed. What do you think about that idea?
Yeah. At the same time, it's just like, especially when it pertains to my life, anytime something fails, a lot of times it's just like a series of unfortunate events. Like, I could have probably had something done right, but something else happened, and it kind of just threw me off balance, threw me completely out of whack, and I wasn't able to do what I wanted to do, and I just kind of accepted fate. It's just like, whatever.
Okay. Yeah, no, and that speaks to the to noticing the bomb dropping, and you're like, well, fuck it, this is going to happen. There's nothing I can't run from a bomb. It's going to hit any minute. The planes are flying, the air raid sirens going. This is happening. I better just get used to the idea. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Okay. Excuse me. And then we move on to the very interesting part of the dream where, so you gave it your all, you fought for a worthy goal, you got all the way to where that goal was supposed to be accomplished, you couldn't get it done through no fault of your own. It wasn't there. You got in there. And that kind of speaks to the series of unfortunate events idea that sometimes I did my best, it failed anyway, not my fault, and it's all going to blow up, and I'm going to end up defeated or dead in this case. But the story doesn't end there. Now you're somewhere else. There's something to that in my mind, the idea that wasn't the end of your dream. That was, in a way, just the beginning. That was the entree into the real meat, in a sense. What do you think about the idea, that idea so far?
Yeah, I guess in a way, because, I've always tried and hoped for maybe finding some sort of answer within all the chaos, within all the bullshit that happens, and, if something fucks up, like I said, whatever happens. But I still wish that there was some sort of explanation, some sort of like light at the end of the tunnel that's gonna, maybe give me a bit of hope still, that I can still finish whatever it is I started. And like I said, when it came to that section of me being in that golden church hall, it wasn't that long of a sequence compared to everything else, but it was still substantial.
For sure, yeah, and I didn't mean to give it a larger time frame, but like, it's almost like everything that happened, not that it wasn't important, but that it was a prelude to this. And I mean, what am I trying to say? I don't want to put words in your mouth, but this, and you related it yourself to, what am I trying to say? Restoring hope even after failure, looking for an answer, looking for guidance, looking for a path, looking to know the path forward even after a failure. Is that making sense?
Yeah.
Okay. And the idea that you would have this quasi-religious figure. Now, you don't have to be religious in order to see God, so to speak, or have a spiritual experience out of something. Like, this might relate, and again, tell me if I'm putting words in your mouth, but this might relate to the idea that getting this information is almost a kind of religious experience. It's almost as if a supernatural force is responsible for dispensing understanding. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I get what you're saying. Like how it explained when it came to the sequence of events, they were supposed to happen the way they did, but there was something substantial enough that changed it, and it still brought about the end of something that wasn't really supposed to something that wasn't supposed to happen. But even though it happened, there's still a way to correct it. There's still a way to move on from that and hopefully push forward still.
Yeah, for sure. And that also relates to your experience with the 2 8-foot tall swole as hell dude bros. Apparently, they were chosen. I don't remember going back through my notes whether you said they had succeeded in what they were doing before they died, or they had failed.
I don't know.
You didn't get a sense of why they were being honored?
Yeah, I don't know why they were there. I'm just aware of the fact that wherever they were, they had also died. But at the same time, they may have died at a separate point in time, and that we had just all came into consciousness at that time, like within that golden hall at the same time, even if it was a different time frame. And
the clothing they were wearing kind of suggested they were not your contemporaries, that they may have come from a different time period. That's the sense you got from it? Or
I want to say that, but it's weird because it still kind of gave off a different feeling. Like I still wasn't entirely sure.
Yeah.
Because like the other guys, they still had like normal modern clothing. So I wasn't entirely sure why they were wearing that attire.
Yeah, and I don't know either, and I don't know that it's necessarily important, but it does mark them out as different. It does emphasize their physique, the idea that they're not wearing a shirt. They're wearing kind of almost, I mean, throughout a lot of human history, we wore a lot of the same clothes. I mean, I think pants were invented in like the 1500s or something. Before then, it was just long stockings and skirts. Basically, everyone wore either a long shirt that got belted around. So that kind of clothing does suggest maybe a reference to your historical knowledge of war over the centuries, and that this kind of stuff has been going on for a long time, that these people are just warriors from another age, but you all come to the same place for knowledge, for guidance. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Okay. And it may not be that significant, but making sense of the imagery, why did you see that? Why that specific thing? I think it is also significant that you don't know why they were given that special honor, and actually your feeling was that it was unfair. That like why wouldn't he call us up in front of him? Why are they getting special treatment? Especially if we were to say, go with the assumption that everyone was there because they didn't finish their mission. There was more to do. They were going to be sent back with new guidance. Why would those people that failed get called up for a special honor, but they're no different than you? It calls to mind that unfair, disparate treatment of people who should be otherwise the same. Does that make sense?
Yeah. See, now I'm thinking about it, they were still partaking within the same war as us, but that's as much as I can think about. Like it was
okay.
Because they were getting different instructions, but it was still part of the same big plan that we were all a part of.
Okay, so you got the sense that they were on your side?
Yeah, they were still fighting the same war as us on our side, but in a different way.
Well, we wouldn't have gotten to that understanding without me throwing out an idea that was wrong. So that's fantastic. I'm happy to be wrong if it gets us where we're going. One thing this suggests to me, that feeling you had of unfairness, it might relate to the idea that you're all in the same war. You're even on the same side, and other people, it feels like their efforts are rewarded better. You talked about your life being a series of unfortunate events, and I think the idea that these two dude bros get the special honor of special instructions and being called up to the front suggests, to me anyway, not a resentment exactly, but an observation that other people have not had as many struggles as you haven't been confronted with as many dead ends, and that it's almost as if the powers that be, the roll of the dice, honored them despite their efforts, despite them not being any better than you or different than you, luck of the draw. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Okay. that was my first impression, and we can explore it more, but we don't have to dwell on it. Either way, whatever you choose. But I think there's something significant in there about your worldview of looking at other people and saying, you know, I wish I had it that easy. I wish, or maybe again, resentment's the wrong word because I don't get that from you at all. But the idea that you see people celebrating their success when it's like random chance. It's like you didn't actually do that. Maybe we're both fighting as hard as we can, and they're competent as well, but they got lucky, and that feels unfair.
Yeah, it's like as I explained before, it was like I had the sense of understanding why it were that they were being called up there, and I, you know, regardless, I had to respect that because it was out of my control. It's out of my decision. Clearly, this person who's up there knows what they're doing. So I, you know, as much as I would, you know, like to speak up, you know, it's just like I still have that feeling of I don't need to speak up. It's not my right. It's not my say.
Yeah, fair enough. And I think that goes back to your other personality traits of just you reference in this place keeping your head down, like a bowed, respectful stance towards the situation and the person at the front of the room, and saying not your place to say is that you don't tend to complain about other people being honored or getting better results or getting special treatment. Although it hurts, you know, you still have that thing like, you know, why couldn't that be me? Why couldn't I get a break once in a while? And that's a reasonable. Does that resonate?
Yeah, like, you know, like it's the initial thought process. It's like, you know, because some people will hold that initial thought process like that's bullshit. Regardless, I should be the one up there. But me, it's just like I'll think that at first. It's like, you know, what the fuck, you know? I mean, I'm trying just as hard here. Why aren't I getting treated that way? But, you know, I'm keeping that thought to myself, and I just kind of think through it, and I'm just like, okay, well, there's this, there's that, there may be this reason, that reason. I shouldn't have you know, I just keep my mouth shut for right now, let things play out, you know, and let bygones be bygones kind of deal, like let it be.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and that's in a very broad and general sense, that is the absolute healthiest way. That's why I kept saying it's not resentment. Resentment would be holding on to that thought and saying, screw those guys, they don't deserve it, and now I'm angry about it, and I'm not going to forget, and I'm going to have a bad day, or I'm going to take it out on someone else. You have a very healthy understanding that shit happens. Shit happened to me. It happens to everybody. I don't know exactly their circumstances. There's things I don't know. There's circumstances beyond my control. There's, I mean, a lot of religion in general is to answer the question, number one, what the hell is going on here? How do we get here? But why do good or bad things happen to good people? And a lot of the answers in religion is about making sense of that idea. So where was I going with that? Your answer in this dream for why did those people or other people in general reflecting on your life get better outcomes than you is that there are forces beyond your control and this desire to believe that there's a plan, that everything is happening the way it's supposed to, the way it has to, that the things that were bad that happened to you had meaning, purpose. They weren't just random. You weren't just shit on by an uncaring universe. Is that making sense?
Yeah.
Okay. There was more to it in my head related to the guys, but we might have dwelled on that long enough. I think it is very important though that you weren't ignored, you weren't glossed over, you weren't what am I trying to say, the source of information, the person who knew what was going on, the person who had been or entity or whatever imbued with power to have an effect in the world, didn't leave you out. He turned to you and said, now it's your turn, and I'm going to give you this information. I'm going to tell you what you need to know. And the way he chose to do that was in a very reassuring manner that everything is as it's supposed to be. What you did was not wasted. What you've been through was not did not lack importance. Your actions had meaning, and more than that, that even death was not the end of your mission or your ability to keep contributing, to keep trying, to keep seeking for success. Does that resonate?
Yeah, makes a lot of sense.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that's a powerful desire to see almost kind of a quasi-religious figure bring you behind the curtain and say, don't worry about it, you're doing fine, keep your chin up. Not only that, I'm gonna make it so you can still have a positive impact. You can still, what am I trying to say? I don't know. I'm stuck on that idea. Even death is not the end. It just feels like I want to just play the outro music. Dun dun dun.
Yeah,
it's just like
I get
that.
what you're saying.
Yeah. That some things have so much meaning they transcend death. I don't know where I'm going with that. I got a lot of ideas, but we can slide that off of there. Move over. Let me see here. It's going back over through some of my other notes. And then the resolution. So he told you what you needed to hear, and you had another sense of resignation of like, I get what he's saying. I know what's going to happen. I'm not coming back like I was, but I get to keep going. I get to keep seeing what's going to happen. And hopefully through this connection to something bigger than myself, I can continue to have a positive impact. Does that make sense?
Yeah, pretty much. Just like, yeah.
Okay. And then you got to what, in a disembodied, out-of-body experience type of sense, experience your compatriots, your friends, your squad member, your team, come to terms with what happened to you, and reckon with how to move on.
Yeah, like how they came to, they didn't have all the recollection of what happened, but they still had the sense of duty, I guess you could say. Like they knew they still had a mission of a sort to complete, that they still had to move on, that they really couldn't waste too much time on just, they couldn't waste time on, mourning me, basically. It's just like, okay,
Yeah.
it sucks, it sucks. It's an absolute tragedy, but we can't, sit here forever. We have to move on. And that's, like you said earlier, it's like, that's something that I would have wanted. I don't want you to, be nobody. I mean, a lot of people, as far as I'm aware, the people I've been around, anytime, they die, it's just like, I don't want you to dwell on it. Just continue living your life and move on.
Yeah. When I was alive, I didn't want to see you sad. I don't want to imagine you being sad because of me now that I'm gone. Get on with it. Yeah. That's how I would feel too. Like, don't mourn me for too long. Have a good cry, drink a beer, and get over it, and live your life. I want to see you happy from the other side. I want to see you continuing with important things. It seems to me like there is something significant in the fact that you were the one that came back deceased, that you were the one that came back separated from your group, unable to continue the mission with them as far as they knew, but not stripped completely of your ability to have a positive impact. And I think that relates somehow to the idea that you came back with information with a more complete understanding of what had transpired in the Golden Place that they didn't retain. If you think about that connection of being separated by understanding that they lack, what do you make of that?
I think, like, how would I put it? Like, they they would know that, of course, what they would do still had some sort of importance, that something did inside them change. They wouldn't really remember everything that had happened, but they knew that something did, in fact, change. They knew that even though my physical body's dead, that I'm still going to be there, that I will still ensure their safety in what they need to accomplish.
Mm-hmm. That's a very powerful concept throughout human history as well. The idea of our ancestors or our deceased friends and relatives watching over us to provide that guidance or additional support for carrying forward. Your ancestors smile upon you, that kind of a thing. I don't know why I'm relating that to now, like ancestral wisdom passed down through the ages, but also, yeah, I'm trying to focus in on that idea of feeling of the experience of being separated from your team, from your compatriots, from the people you were actively working together with to accomplish a goal, and that I think there's something related to that with the idea of retaining or possessing secret knowledge that they had largely forgotten. I don't know if it makes sense to you, but it calls to my mind the idea that learning something important that other people don't know tends to set you apart from them in a way that, like if you could explain it to them and bring them into your understanding, that would be fine. But there is a gap between a person who knows something and other people near you who don't. It creates a sense of distance. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's something that's always been told to me too growing up. It's like, because my brothers, my family members have always been, really religious, either Christian or Catholic, and have always told me that kind of thing.
They've told you they feel distant from you because they think they know things that you don't, or they believe things that you don't accept?
Yeah, like they know that I can't fully believe what they believe in, but of course, they're still going to do what they can in terms of what they believe their power has to try and make things right.
Gotcha.
And also been told about like how, there's always guardian angels. Of course, that's, stuff that's always been told throughout history as well. There's guardian angels, stuff like that. But yeah.
Yeah, and it's not necessarily that you were told those things, therefore you dreamed about them, but what do we dream about? We dream about things we've seen or thought or felt, anything we've ever experienced in our life. That's the only way anything can ever end up in our dreams. It has to be experienced on some level, or we have no reference to it. Like, imagine a color you've never seen. It's impossible. So it has to be some our dreams are always references to experiences in some manner. How many siblings did you have, or do you have? Sorry.
My family tree is kind of complicated. My closest siblings, I would say, are my brothers because they came from the same mom, though they have a different father. They had, I think, there's 3 brothers, but 2 of them, they had joined the military before. One used to be a pilot, or not a pilot. He used to be in the Air Force, I believe. He used to work on planes and drones. The other one was a foot soldier. He made it to like staff sergeant, but he's Catholic, so that's that.
Okay.
But I don't really keep connections with family all too much. I've never really kept connections with anybody for extended periods of time. I usually kind of just, not that I really shut everything out. It's just that I don't really go out of my way to communicate with people unless they want to communicate with me.
Fair enough. Yeah. Were you more involved in the lives of your siblings 5 years ago when this dream happened?
No, I was not.
They had already kind of separated themselves from the main family. Were they older than you by a bit?
Oh yeah, by a substantial bit.
Okay.
Yeah, when I grew up with just my mom, like I said, my family tree and family in general is just it's a big mess.
It's okay. Yeah, I don't want to pry too much. Yeah.
No, you're good. You're good. But yeah, only recently have I actually tried to make a little bit of connections with them, but nothing I believe in terms of family would be too related to the dream.
Okay, that was going to be my next question, is because in the dream you've got military imagery, you've got religious imagery, and you have this family connection to siblings that have been in the military and that are pretty highly religious. Does putting those pieces kind of together, does that inspire any thoughts about looking back on the dream and what it might have been referencing, trying to tell you?
No, I can't really make too many connections to it.
Okay.
I mean, I can see how the connection can be made, but I can't, in terms of how I felt about the dream and the way things have happened. Yeah. I can't.
No, fair enough. And a lot of these things can be not directly related. I mean, it isn't a one-to-one correlation. It isn't like you dreamed a specific thing because of a specific person. It can be, but not always. But I think there's something to that. What am I trying to say? The idea that because these people were important figures in your life, whether you were close to them or not, in terms of a family bond, and their path of military and your fascination with history and military, and your, I don't want to say struggles, but your how you conceptualize or how you've processed religious questions and matters of faith. I think all of that ties in somehow, because that's literally the imagery of the entire dream, is all of those concepts kind of bundled together, and the idea of seeking to accomplish something important that is worth risking your life and even giving your life, and having that result in coming away from somewhere special with significant understanding. And even if you returned and you were, say, separated from your squad mates, who I don't think represent your brothers specifically, but other people that share your mission or who are on a similar path, that you would come back separated from them by the experience, or by the difference in the results of your experience, and be removed from, there's something significant to the idea of being a ghost, a watcher with limited influence, but still the ability to contribute. That you're on the same path, but you're not with them. You're following, you're watching.
Yeah, I get exactly what you're saying.
I think there's something there. Yeah. I use a lot of words because I don't know what I'm trying to say.
No, I get exactly where you're going with it.
What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, maybe it could just be with the fact that, because I was separated from my brothers at a young age, because, again, they did have a different father. My mother had tried to take custody over them. She wasn't a suitable mother for them, however. And she actually tried to use California laws to try and take them from their father and try to take complete custody over them, even though my brothers really resent our mother. And I was kind of like the only person. It's kind of weird how my life is. Like when it came to even both my dad and my mother, like my mother, she was not a picture perfect mom. She had very, very, very many flaws. I won't go into too much detail, but at the end of the day, my brothers ended up resenting her a lot for it. And I was like the only person the only child that actually, kind of loved her, because it was she never did perfect with me either. I still have a lot of issues that came along with her.
Sure.
But I still feel that, she did everything that she could to try and correct her wrongdoings. And I'm kind of in the same boat with my father at the moment, because my siblings on my father's side don't want anything to do with him either.
Yeah.
And I don't know, it's kind of weird. It's like I kind of get the feeling that
complicated history of family dysfunction.
yeah, pretty much.
That is honestly that is par for the course. But no, but your experience is, and I don't mean to minimize it, but we're all dysfunctional. That's what I'm saying. But the idea that you've been through some shit and it was serious, and it sounds like you've survived it fairly well. Would you say that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm still here.
Well, true. You're not dead yet, and hopefully not anytime soon. But no, but just your personal impression of, like, some people are just destroyed by family dysfunction and their trauma in the past. But you sound like you came through it pretty well. Like you were able to make sense of it, put it in perspective, get your head on your shoulders in a way that lets you look to the future and continue struggling towards better things and not dwelling in the past and giving up hope.
For the most part, yeah. I mean, I still have my issues. I still do kind of dwell in the past on a few things.
Sure.
But yeah, I still try to do everything I can to do whatever I can within my own power.
Yeah.
Like I kind of had the feeling with my mom how like I should, like in a sense, like, you know, I had to be something for her to feel like she still did something right within her life. And I feel the same when it comes to my father. Like I'm still kind of, in a sense, sort of like the last, not I don't want to say like his last hope to feel like he's done something meaningful, but like, you know, something where he doesn't feel like he's completely failed. You know.
Gotcha. You want to make good so that they don't each feel like they just screwed up all their kids and it was a complete waste of time.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I mean, that's a good reason to want to succeed, you know, to kind of honor your parents in a way, and to help give them a good sense of themselves. Hopefully you're also pursuing life for its own sake and your own enjoyment and your own path. I think you can definitely do both at the same time. But living for others isn't always the best way to go. It's a necessary thing, I think, sometimes to dedicate yourself to, I don't know, in some ways that's what marriage is supposed to be. The idea of now you're living for, and not on behalf of, but in partnership with and to the benefit of the person closest to you, mutual benefit, that kind of thing. And to be able to give that to other people. Who are we without other people? We're just, why do anything? Why stay alive? What's the point of any of it? So that's a big deal. Well, we've been going almost 3 hours. I appreciate your time, and I don't want to rush you out. Of course, I do have an appointment to get to in a few minutes.
You're good, man.
I do need to wrap it up, but I think we've, you know, a lot of people. I say that a lot, but some folks have a concept of this as like, we're going to nail it down. We're going to get one specific answer. It all means X. It all means this. Sometimes we get that. Sometimes we get something very specific, but a lot of the time it's just an exploration of why did this happen? Why did I see it that way? Why did the story play itself out? How does that relate to what I was experiencing, what I want, what I don't want, what I hope for, what I'm worried about, and hopefully you've come through this with a better understanding of those whys and hows. How do you feel about it?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely feel like I've come out with a bit more understanding in terms of dream, and that'll even myself a little bit.
I hope so. Yeah, and honestly, if you do what I say, like when you're brewing coffee, you got to let it percolate. I just let these ideas percolate in my background. We may not have hit a final answer. We may have hit, and I think we did hit a lot of very important elements, but I think it'll take more time to let it percolate, and even more connections will come to you. And I'd love to hear back from you. We can set up another interview, or we can you can go to the comment section and respond to my debrief, which this probably won't be up till tomorrow because I got an appointment. But yeah, and hopefully your understanding of this is just beginning in a way. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
Yeah, I hope so, and I hope it's been an enjoyable process and a beneficial one in the long run.
Yeah, it was a pretty good talk, and I kind of enjoyed it.
Okay, good. I always hope it's at the very least entertaining. When we were hitting about like the 2-hour mark, I was like, is he getting bored here? Should I shut up and just move on with this? I didn't know.
No, you're good, man. Like I said, I'm off till like Friday for right now. So.
Oh, good deal. Good deal. Well, then you can look forward to putting this up and listen back to it if you wish, or go listen to some of the other folks. I don't know. You said you have kind of a short attention span, so you might not listen to yourself talk for 3 hours. Yeah,
it might be hard. I'll probably skim through it, but yeah.
Okay.
I'm going to definitely check it out.
Good deal. Well, I think we'll just wrap it up there, and I will thank you, shaggE, for talking to me. I honestly, myself too, I enjoyed the process. I loved it. I love getting inside people's experience, especially in this dream realm where anything can happen, and it's entirely possible absolutely nothing makes sense, and sometimes we just go for a ride and see what happens. So I'll go ahead and sign off then. I'll thank everyone for listening to another episode of Dreamscapes.